G'day everyone, I'm AzureBlaze, and welcome to my thoughts on Super Mario Bros. 2 and its subsequent remake as part of Mario All-Stars on the SNES. I was really excited going into this game as I'd never properly played it before, like I had with the first and the third game. I played the third game a fair amount, never finished it though, I don't believe. Therefore I'll get to that when I play the third game. However, in the second game, yeah, I was really excited for it. I'd never really properly played it before. I dabbled in it every now and then, however I've never fully played it. And everything I'd seen about and heard about this game made it out to be quite different from a typical Mario game. Therefore, yeah, it made me quite excited to see how it sort of goes. I won't go into the story about how it was originally Doki Doki Panic. It's been talked about a fair amount online, and I don't feel I have anything to add. simply put. However, the fact that it was originally a different game makes it stand out, when compared to the other games in the franchise. I did realize while I was making this video that there is as well the advanced games, like the Super Mario Advance games. I'm not going to go over them with the games as I go. I think maybe is a possibility, it's like a 50-50 chance almost, that I might make a whole video regarding Mario Bros. Deluxe and then the advanced games in one video together. I might not, I don't know. One day I might wake up and be like, yes, I'll do that. I don't know, we'll find out. When discussing differences though between this game and the first game, considering it is a different game realistically, I guess the first thing to discuss is instead of having only Mario and Luigi to play as, who mostly played the same in the original games, this game has 4 playable characters: Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Peach, and each character has their own abilities, of which are almost the same as future games in the series when they're included together, like Mario 3D World and stuff like that. I think it's pretty neat that this game is where they got their standard ability set from, I guess. It is kind of funny that some games simply sort of put them back to Mario's level again, however, then some games use it. I don't know, it's interesting. It depends, I guess, what Nintendo feel like that day. I decided to play as Luigi for the duration of my playthrough, as his higher jump came in handy many times, and I generally like playing as Luigi. If I had to choose out of these 4 characters in Mario Party, Mario Kart, 3D World and all that sort of thing, I would generally choose Luigi simply because I prefer playing as Luigi. That's how I tend to go. This game as well uses a heart system instead of the normal typical mushroom system. 2 hearts do actually act similarly to Mario, normal mushrooms, where the first heart, if you only have 1 heart, you're small Mario. If you have 2 hearts, you're big Mario type thing. And then something that is a bit different is you can collect mushrooms and it will increase the hearts one by one by each mushroom you get, which is, I don't know, I kind of actually wish this would come back in a future game, not necessarily a main game, have maybe in a side game or something like that, because I think it's a pretty interesting way to do the system. Yeah, I don't know, I think it'd be fun to see it again. You only sort of get the extra hearts for the duration of the level, I believe. I don't even know if it's the world. I should have probably checked that before I recorded. However, yeah, I don't know. The character can be hit many more times before losing a life though, once you start leveling it up like that. Perhaps the biggest new mechanic is the ability to pick up and throw a large variety of items, however, and you can pick up items or enemies. Generally it's there's food that you can pick up. Turnips specifically is a big one. You can throw them throughout the game. It greatly changes how everything is dealt with throughout the game, as now the player must pick up and throw things at enemies to get rid of them instead of jumping on their head. I don't know, it's interesting. Whilst it was a really fun and different way of progressing through the game, I often found the act of trying to throw could be quite finicky, at times, to throw and drop it, sort of simply getting what I want. Yeah, the idea is if the character's running in a direction and the player presses the throw button, to throw the item, it should continue to move in that direction, almost as if the character's throwing it and as well with inertia helping it to move, and then pressing the button whilst not moving should allow the item to simply drop in front of them. However, a fair amount of the time, throughout my playthrough, I don't know, I struggled to get it to work how I intended it to. And whilst I do not feel like it necessarily got my input wrong, trying to get it to, I guess, sort of throw it the way I wanted it to, or to drop it, felt, as I said, overly finicky. More often than I liked, I tended to have the item go the wrong direction or the wrong distance. Yeah, another problem with the mechanic is that the button to pick up the items is the same button to sprint, which I wish, considering I mean, I can kind of understand on the NES, considering I only had 2 buttons. Have like the All-Stars version, I wish they kind of gave you the option to split that up at the very least. It is kind of frustrating because, like, yeah, like I just, sometimes it's really difficult to sprint while holding the item. Like, the only way you really could do it is to hold down the button and pick up the item, like to pick up the item whilst and keep holding the button, and then letting go, and then you have to press again. It will to throw it, and even if you want to go back to sprinting, it won't work. It's kind of frustrating. It's a bit of a messy system, and I kind of wish they, like, as I said in the All-Stars version, different buttons did different things. It's, to be fair, it's not necessarily a this game like exclusive problem. I feel like Mario games have had that throughout its time. Like in Wonder, I've been having, like, I get frustrated when I try to pick up an item and then, like, I throw a fireball or something, and I don't know why that's all part of the same button as sprint. I don't know why they decided to do that. Anyway, the final main mechanic I can think of is the ability to charge the jump. This is done by holding down crouch until the character flashes and jumping to allow the player to go higher than usual, as is probably pretty explanatory from charging a jump. Because of this ability, there is an increased form of verticality, like including higher up platforms and sections where the camera will, like, slide on the y-axis instead of the x-axis, which is not something I feel like I've seen too much in games of its age, at the very least. Like, there's the parts where, like, you fall, like in the first level, or like you have to climb your way upwards. I don't know, I think that's pretty neat. For the games themselves, I played them in the same order I've sort of been doing as I have with the previous games in my little marathon. I played the All-Stars version first, and then the original to go back and see. I think, personally for me, it's like more impactful on the changes if I play the All-Stars first and then the original, rather than go, oh, that was an improvement. I can go, oh, okay, I see where the improvement was here and why. Yeah, anyway, when discussing the stages, however, there are some interesting ones to talk about. 3-3 has an instance that sees the player running away from an angry face that is after a key. That happens throughout the game many times. However, in this specific instance, I like how the player is going down like an area. You have to keep going down this section, and then you can, like, go on, like, through the walls on either side of the wall type thing, kind of like how Pac-Man works, where you can go down off the left side onto the right side and everything like that, and you have to keep going down that way. You can throw the key and the face will run away, like fly away and all that sort of thing. I simply think it's a fun way that, like, plays around with the idea of the 2D plane, with the screen traveling on the opposite side. And yeah, I don't know, I thought that was a pretty fun thing. It did take me a little bit to actually get used to how to fully do it as well. I didn't realize at first that you could throw the key and it would make the face leave. 6-2 takes place almost entirely on the back of a condor or something like that. I should have checked the name because it does show the names at the end. However, you take place on a bird. You begin by jumping on and traveling all the way to the right side of the stage and, and avoiding obstacles. At the end of the stage, the player jumps on a bird flying the opposite direction and heads back to the other side of the stage over the top of something. I don't know, I thought that was simply a fun way to do it, as if, like, a stage. Finally, 4-2 is a bit of a mixed one for me. It starts with quite a frustrating section, in my opinion, where the player has to, like, move along a long area of ice whilst avoiding Bezos. I know their name. They're, like, flying the opposite direction in sort of groups, and you have to, like, jump and weave your way through these groups of Bezos. At some point, I was getting that frustrated that I was trying to rush it, and I kept losing, and it was a whole thing. It was difficult to get past. However, like, after a good amount of time, like, you could sort of work out, like, which way to get over them. And then you go through a door and you find some whales. And this is probably my favorite part of the game. And, like, you can, like, jump along some of the whales. They have, like, a water spout that comes out. Touching the side of the water hurts the player, which I found kind of odd considering it's only water. However, like, jumping on top of the spout, it acts as sort of like a platform, therefore you can ride the spout up as if it's down as well, and, like, you can get up to a higher path, which I think is fun. That's sort of almost Sonic-like, like using mechanics of the stage to get up to a higher path. I don't know, I think that's kind of funny. And then I found it to be, like, a fun idea in a stage. Right. Like, I wish the stage did not include that first part. That was frustrating. I could have done a whole stage of the whales. I think that would have been fun. And then, I guess to just quickly discuss the music. Yeah, I don't know. I generally played with the sound sort of off I wasn't really listening to music. However, the music I did listen to sounded quite bubbly and charming, I must say. Quickly before I sort of leave to the next section, I did forget to mention that after each level, a slot machine can be used to sort of like gain like lives and stuff like that. Like, coins are not as frequent throughout this game. You find them through going through these like dark room door things. Like, you go through a room door and it's like put you in like a darker version of the stage. I don't know what it is. You pick up coins and then you can use those coins in the slot machine to get some lives. Yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, moving on. The boss battles were much more interesting in this game when compared to the original. They had Bowser appearing at like the end of each in the original, and like he doesn't appear at all in this game, which has something to do with the fact that this game wasn't originally a Mario game, I'd imagine. Instead, there are like a fair few different and unique mini-bosses and end-of-world ones, which I quite enjoyed, actually. Some to talk about include Birdo, who made their debut in this game before Yoshi, and to be honest, it probably shows up a little bit too many times throughout the game. Like, you can get to the end of the stage, and there's a pretty good chance that Birdo was simply there. At least they do try to mix things up with like different variants of Birdo, and sometimes they switch back to like the old variants and all that sort of thing. There's like different variants of them every now and then, and there's like one that fires fire and eggs. There's only one that simply fires fire. I don't know, it's interesting. The way you have to take it down is like grabbing the eggs and chucking it back at Birdo. Yeah, interesting nonetheless. Anyway, Mauser is a bomb-throwing mouse, which is simply a fun thing to say. I actually found them quite difficult because like trying to throw the bombs back did tend to feel a little bit tricky. Eventually I got it though. Like, I found some little strategies and stuff as well, which was quite fun. Triclide is essentially a Hydra. The battle can sometimes feel as like sort of as tricky as Mauser, as the player must dodge stuff, like his fireballs in this case, and then like throw things back, and usually there's like objects in the room that you have to throw back at them. I don't know, it is pretty interesting though. And the end of the level exit turns into a boss at some point, which I thought was hilarious the first time I saw it. I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting to go through it, and then like the bird head turned into a boss and came flying at me, and you had to throw things at him as well. I thought that was funny. And then for the final boss, there is a new primary villain in this game, which is Wart. He's a giant toad who launches bubbles at the player from his mouth. You wouldn't think bubbles were that like massive of like a tool to use against the player. However, in this case, they were kind of, yeah, they hurt. We'll put it that way. To combat this, the player must like throw foods that are provided by a machine. I don't understand this machine. Like, it sort of shows up right at the end of the game and that's it. A random thing to come out of nowhere. You have to throw those foods into his mouth when he opens it for an attack. This battle took way longer for me to get through than I hoped, simply because like initially I couldn't figure out what to do to defeat him. Like, I was throwing the fruit at him. I didn't realize you had to do it like right when his mouth opened, or while his mouth opened doing his attack. Because when you try to throw the fruits while he is attacking, it usually hits the bubbles, and it doesn't work. Therefore, you have to try hit his mouth while not hitting the bubbles. Therefore, the best time to do it is like right when he's about to fire the bubbles out. However, then you have to like jump up in front of him and risk getting hurt. It's a whole thing. It took me a little bit to figure out. However, like, once I did, I don't know, I found it quite fun. It was an interesting way to end off the game. And with that, the game had ended, and the credits began. Like, I like how the credits show the names of the enemies as well. I wish more games did that, even if Birdo and Ostro are mixed up in the credits, which was funny. And I think they're even mixed up in the All Stars version. I'll have to check that again. I think they are, which I don't understand why they didn't change that if they are. They may not be. After it was all said and done, however, like, I felt this game was like, it was really good. I'm glad I finally played it after a long time, like, wondering what the game would be like. It has some frustrating sections here and there, however, overall I think it's like quite a unique game and presents interesting concepts that, for the most part, creates a fun in-between game before Mario Bros. 3. Yeah, I believe that's all I have to say about the game, however. Next up in the marathon, we'll be back on Kirby. However, I will not be doing Kirby Superstar, which would, by date and time, would be the next one to do. Instead, I've decided before I leave the Game Boy Color era for Kirby, I'll be coming back to that for Mario. However, for Kirby, before I sort of leave that, I'd like to play and talk about Kirby Tilt and Tumble, even if it's out of order and not a main game. This doesn't mean I'll be doing like spin-offs all the way throughout the marathon or anything like that. I simply did wanted to do this one because I don't know, it seemed interesting. I thought it'd be fun to play through the game and talk about it, and it's a bit of a shorter game as well, which helps me sort of get back a bit more on track. However, for this video, I believe that is all from me. I hope everybody enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and I shall be back in the next one. Cheers!